Hi, everybody. This is Julinna Oxley. I'm the co-founder of Grand Strand Action Together, and I'm here tonight with my trusty sidekick, Ashlyn Briere, and she is the other co-founder of Grand Strand Action Together. So we've been doing a series of live stream Facebook events since the pandemic started. We're going to continue that at least once a month for the foreseeable future, but we also do hope to get back to in-person meetings one day soon. So we'll be coming up with those, but until we do that, we are all here live on Facebook tonight. And tonight I get to hang out with my colleague, Dr. Matthew Wilkinson, who is an associate professor in the Department of Sociology. And typically we are on the same floor with each other and would run into each other multiple times a week. And yet I haven't seen him in person for a whole year. So I'm happy that we get to hang out at least virtually. I know, right?
It's been a year, huh?
It's been a year. It's been a year and then some.
Yeah, it feels like longer and shorter than that at the same time. So.
Yeah, I know, right? It's like time is funny like that. Plays trick on us.
Says the philosopher, right?
Says the philosopher, right? Time.
Matt has not been to the happy hours, so we're waiting for you, Matt. We're waiting.
Oh yeah, I'm kind of settled back in. I was traveling a bit, and yeah, I'm ready for some happy hours.
Oh yeah, we need some happy hours. So we need happy hour because of conspiracy theories. No, I'm kidding.
Okay, I am drinking a blueberry lemonade vodka.
So. Oh, wow. That looks tasty.
This is why I should have stayed at home so I could have had wine, and I'm sitting in my office drinking water.
I was thinking you might have bourbon in there.
No, hindsight.
That would not be a bad idea. Sorry, that's my child knocking at the window.
Yep.
I'm not. Okay. All right. So we'll go ahead and get started. So tonight, we are going to be talking about conspiracy theories and misinformation. Matt has done us the extreme, wonderful service of going down the rabbit hole of conspiracy theories, I guess, so we don't have to, and learning more about them and really infiltrating and understanding how they work and how people get wrapped into them. I think probably a lot of us know people personally who are following conspiracy theories or who are forming beliefs that are oriented towards conspiracy theories. It's very easy. Somebody can just send you something and you may not have any idea that it's something that's wildly false. And so then you start believing it and don't realize it, even if it's something that seems crazy. Somebody was telling me that this is a friend of mine, and she said that somebody had sent her something and it said that if you got the COVID vaccine that you got like a droopy face. So she's like, I don't think I want to get the COVID vaccine because it's going to give you a droopy face. And I was like, what are you talking about, droopy face? Anyway, any of us can get this information and not know whether it's true or not. And so I want to hear from Matt, who's really sort of made this sort of a research area for himself. To sort of learn more about them. So what we hope to discuss tonight is what are conspiracy theories and why do they work? How do people get wrapped into them? But then B, how can we talk to people? How can we engage with people who are believing things that are up the conspiracy theory?
Sounds great.
Okay, great. So I'll just go ahead and start off with a real basic question. So how do conspiracy theories work and why are people so attracted to them?
Yeah, that's obviously an interesting and a good starting question to start off on. I've been fascinated with conspiracy theories for a long time, but my research never really lined up with them until recently, for obvious reasons, with QAnon and some of the pandemic's hoax material. So I started talking about it with colleagues and reading books and reading what some psychologists have written in political science, and kind of just did this deep dive into some of the literature. So, most of what I'll be talking about today comes from my experience and training as a sociologist and what I've read in the past 6 months or so on the topic, but also my unnecessarily deep dive into some of these worlds that I've participated in online, and I'm sure Ashlyn will jump in.
Yeah,
with
you did some very extensive research.
Yeah, so I have been, and I will say, if you're just lurking and talking to people. It's not really research, but I have been taking notes on just about every extended interaction I've had, and of course removing the names. And it's not for publication research, it's just for talking about it in a general way to try to understand it for me personally and to share it with other people as well. So clearly these views are my own. They're not reflective of anyone else or my employer. Just wanted to get that out there. So
yeah, so we should probably also say that.
Yeah, nothing to say is reflective of Coastal Carolina University. It's just me.
I mean, and it's a sensitive topic. People get angry about it, and that's part of kind of the heart of it, is that people commit to a belief and then they fight like hell to hold on to that belief. We'll talk about loss aversion later if we have time, and I think that's what's so difficult, is as Julinna pointed out, once people latch onto an idea, it is very hard to shift them off of that idea. And we really should do this exact same talk again with some psychologists, because I'd love to hear what they have to say on it. I touched on it a bit, and I took a great course in college called what was it, Explanations of the or Paranormal Psychology or something, and it was in my minor, but it really stood out to me. So I think to start off, what we need to differentiate between is there's certainly a use for healthy skepticism and kind of this critical eye and critical mind. And some of the material I was reading talks about how this is probably hardwired, a sociologist talking about something that's hardwired and built into our brains. It paid off to be discerning for our ancestors. You had to be critical and skeptical. And what was that noise in the bush? You don't know, it's probably nothing. You assume it's something because that pays off. And in our culture, we certainly pride ourselves on being independent thinkers. And I think for myself, no one tells me what to think. But without the right tools, that's a recipe for disaster. It leaves us vulnerable to all kinds of propaganda and misinformation. So I think that the false confidence that a lot of us, and it is us, it's not just them, we'll come to that later, the false confidence a lot of us have makes it actually easier for us to be manipulated. So healthy skepticism is great, but it goes too far when people start seeing shadowy figures behind every door, and there's sinister, nefarious people working against us. So I think that we have to separate skepticism and critical thinking from paranoia and constant suspicion. And you can kind of pretty immediately tell which side of that center line people are on within a few minutes. So y'all wanted to jump in? I don't know. I can't see everyone's faces.
Yeah. So this isn't something we, I guess, plan to ask, but it kind of like goes with what you were just saying. So if someone is sent, an article, and they read it, article, not an actual,
right,
anything substantial with evidence to back it up. But if they read like an opinion article, and then they're like, yeah, this makes sense to me. Like, this is what I believe. And they, they go about their business, and that's their new deep held belief. Any research that they're going to do, AKA Google, wouldn't that just be them confirming their own opinion already, instead of looking for an opposing opinion to change their mind?
Yes. And again, I wish we could tag in a psychologist, and hopefully they'll text me or, ask a question to y'all if I butcher it. But this is a confirmation bias, right? Is that we look for evidence or information or friends or allies who confirm our beliefs, because being wrong is hard, right? It's, in my field, being wrong is a challenge, and you're moving towards truth. Trained as a scientist, that's what we're supposed to do. But in general, in your day-to-day life, knowing that you were wrong, it's really difficult. So we seek out that validation.
Right.
So that's one of the little kind of biases that works, is that you want to Google something that supports your beliefs so you can win, right? We have this culture where you have to win and you can't be wrong. The other thing, and I scrolled down, I had a note for this. I was reading, and I forgot, I think it was the psychologist Michael Shermer, who talks about loss aversion. And so apparently, I guess it'd be economists have done studies to show, I don't know how they came up with this, but where's the quote? Losses hurt twice as much as gains feel good. So you have to, the gain has to be, more than sufficient to offset a loss. And he talks about people in sports where I like to win, but I really hate to lose. So once we have committed to something, especially in our winner take all society where politics is sport, you cannot admit you were wrong because it brings you that loser status, that, the shame of defeat. And if you think about it, Donald Trump, that was his and is his entire brand. He rose to power in the Republican Party by never admitting he was wrong. He would just move on to the next thing. And so, sizable portion of our society liked that idea that, you're a winner, you're not a loser. So you have to commit to that. So that loss aversion and confirmation bias are huge.
I really feel like Donald
form an opinion, right, Julinna?
Yeah. Trump, I think, took that. Most people we all have confirmation bias and loss aversion to some extent. So for example, if you hold a stock and you see it going down, you're going to be like, I don't want to sell. Like I see it, because if I'm going to lose some money, but then you're like, oh, how much money am I going to lose? So you don't, so that's kind of normal loss aversion. But Trump really took that to the pathological point, right? So that you're literally denying reality. Like you can't even acknowledge not winning, right? And I guess I come from a discipline that has a lot of intellectual flexibility. And so for philosophers say they're wrong all the time. They're like, yeah, like I've changed my mind on this view. Like I thought this for this reason, and I thought it for 5 years or 10 years, and here's why I changed my mind. But there's always reasons attached to it. And I think that what's challenging I guess I'm probably around, most people aren't like that, right? Most people are just like, oh, I'm right. Here's what I believe and I'm right. But they don't have reasons, right? So frequently I get papers from students and, I give them, here's an argument in favor of a position. Here's an argument against a position. And 50% of the time, students will end up agreeing with both articles. And I'm like, you can't agree with, it's raining and it's not raining. You have to go with one or the other. Or they'll say that they reject one view and the reason that they give is because it's not theirs. And I'm like, that's not a reason. Just because that's the conclusion, but that's not a reason. So I am concerned about people's ability to reason, obviously, that I don't know how to get, I don't know how to fix that.
Well, I think if we knew, then maybe we wouldn't have this problem, because that seems to be the part of the issue, is that, they have this belief that, let's just say celebrities are drinking the blood of children, which is a very ludicrous thing to say, but that is something that is very prevalent in the whole Q world. And, instead of actually thinking, okay, is this real? Like Tom Hanks, really? Like, Mr. Rogers, Forrest Gump.
Tom Hanks. You could have picked any other celebrity and people would go, maybe.
But even like a more valid, opinion that's not so out there.
Yeah.
How many people actually go and look for the argument against it? Like that's your trade, Julinna. Like you may have learned that like in your studies, or maybe you were, raised that way by your parents, because your parents are also kind of the same cut from the same cloth, obviously. Yeah. But the general population doesn't function that way. So that's what we have Matt here for.
Yeah, I know. So Matt, tell us about some of these conspiracy theories that people are. So can you tell us some of the key words, phrases, or topics? I didn't know that the Save the Children thing was like a Q thing, but Ashlyn told me it was. I haven't seen it because I don't read conspiracy, but tell us more.
Yeah, and if I forget, I have a whole separate, I jotted down notes while I was in that group, and I'll make sure I come back to it. But, when we think about conspiracy theories, and hopefully y'all can add some, the first one I came in contact with, and I was thinking about that this morning, that I read this book on the JFK assassination. I'm 17 years old, 16 years old, and it did its job. It sowed just enough doubt where I thought, oh, this isn't, I know the real truth. And the language wasn't there, but here's your buzzword, sheep. We didn't have that then, but the sheep are the people who are just following what they're told.
Okay.
Right.
I'm not a sheep. I'm awake. I know the real truth, right? And so it makes you feel powerful. I know more than these other people because I'm a skeptic. There's that critical mind. And of course, and not to deflate anyone, but the more I read and hear, these podcasts about the investigations in JFK, it was one guy. Like there's no conspiracy into how it was carried out. So that was my first exposure to a conspiracy theory. And then you have 9/11 truthers who tend to be on the left end of the spectrum. You have anti-vaxxers where vaccines cause autism, even though I think that was Andrew Wakefield was the physician. He retracted the study, lost his medical license, but there's still that myth that vaccines cause autism. There's the Sandy Hook truthers. I've spent some time talking to some of them as much as I could stomach it.
So they believe that Sandy Hook never happened?
There's various manifestations of it. Some of them, and this is where Alex Jones comes in, they deny that anyone died and that people who are, so the lawsuits for Alex Jones and InfoWars is that he is accusing or had accused the parents of being crisis actors and pretending that their children died.
Yeah.
Okay.
What?
And others have said that, the whole false flag thing, that it didn't happen, or that it was allowed to happen in order to come get our guns or something. So that's about as bad as it can get, is telling your viewers that these parents who lost their child or children were making it up. And so that's about one of the worst ones I've ever read about and then encountered personally in some of these groups. Of course, QAnon, which we'll talk about in a little bit, the pandemic hoaxers, which is we've all been seeing quite a bit. Stolen election, that's a recent one. And it feels like we're getting hit with a lot of new ones rapidly. And we'll obviously talk about that over the next hour or so. What other ones do y'all know? Conspiracy theories. I'll just jotted down a quick
I know
list.
flat earthers have made a comeback.
Oh yeah, flat earth.
Bohemian Grove. Bohemian Grove. Do
What
you
is
know that? You're going to have to stomach about like 5 minutes of Alex Jones, but I'll send you the clip later. And it is the most insane thing I have ever heard in my entire life.
Okay. Yes, would love to.
Hollywood and politicians all meet in this field, I guess. And it gets pretty crazy from there. So yeah, but I mean, we have so many current ones. I guess my biggest question is, do people not pay attention to like what has happened in the past with like David Koresh and Jonestown? Like what makes them think that they are not drinking the Kool-Aid,
Right.
Yeah.
Well, that's this is, I forgot where, it was probably one of my religion classes, phenomenology of religion. The joke was, what's the definition of a cult? It's the church down the street from yours. Right. So my community, whether it's a religious community or my hobby community, CrossFit's a cult. Jiu-jitsu is amazing. Jiu-jitsu is also a cult. But if you're doing it, it's a cult. Me, no, I'm the smart one, right? So we apply that label, and oh no, David Koresh was a psychopath, but Alex Jones is taking us into the future, and they don't remember their hit and miss record. Some of my friends, God bless them, a long time ago in the martial arts community, loved Alex Jones, and this was my first kind of encounter with, how are you thinking this person is telling the truth? And it's still on YouTube, I'm sure. It was something like 9 minutes of Alex Jones being wrong. And it has his history of insane claims he's made, none of which have come true. And when you watch them one after the other, it would deflate anyone who thought he was, delivering us some great truth. So people have short memories, right? They don't want to think about that time they were wrong. Moving to the next thing. So.
Yeah, that I guess that totally makes sense. Like, oh, the guy from Jonestown, I can't remember his name, him and David Koresh, like, oh, they were crazy people, but like that, I would never fall for that. Like, Alex Jones is the real deal. He's telling the truth.
Real truth, right? Or
Mhm.
Q delivering
Yeah.
the truth from wherever he was supposed to be located. One thing I don't know if we mentioned earlier, and I've been thinking about this quite a bit, that it seems like, and this is not true, it seems like conspiracy theorists are only on the right, the political right and conservatives. And that is absolutely not true. So for any of us who are patting ourselves on the back going, oh, it's only something with the radical, insane right, it's
Mhm.
not true. And I believe it was a political scientist found that Republicans were just as likely to believe that Obama was born outside of the United States as Democrats were to believe that 9/11 was an inside job.
Hmm.
So both of those things are objectively false. But, and I forgot what percentage of Republicans and percentage of Democrats, but it lined up to where it was similar. And so Democrats would have short memories, forgetting about some, we'll talk about some more of those later. The difference is that currently on the political right, we have political candidates, including the head of a major political party, who have mainstreamed some of these conspiracy theories. And that's why right now, in this particular moment, it feels like it's only coming from one side. In the past, and one of the, I'll post this later, resources for people who want to watch some of these. I think it was called Pulling the Thread. The first chapter was conspiracy theories are for losers. And whatever party lost the election, boom, here come the conspiracy theories, because losing hurts, right? Why did my team lose the football game? Because the refs were in on it. The refs were working with the New England Patriots to make sure, it all blows up into something so that you can explain away your loss. But Trump broke the mold with that. The Republicans won, but then these conspiracy theories didn't cease. They were amplified at the highest level. So that's something we have to kind of look into.
Hey, Matt, can we do like a real quick definition of a conspiracy theory? So the way that I talk about conspiracy theories in philosophy is that I usually say that it's a theory that doesn't have evidence in favor of it. And the reason for that is that the evidence for the truth is hidden. Is that a correct definition of a conspiracy theory?
That sounds good. That sounds good to me. I like that one. The one that I had somewhere printed out was Michael Shermer, who I believe is a psychologist, and he does some really good stuff on debunking. And so his definition of a conspiracy is two or more people plotting or acting in secret to gain an advantage or harm others immorally or illegally. So that's a conspiracy. And he points out conspiracies do exist, right? That people, I'm trying to think of a good example off the top of my head, big pharma pushing to make sure marijuana stays illegal. On some level, there's evidence for that, maybe not to the degree that some of the theories say so, but so a conspiracy theory would just be a theory about how that's happening. People behind closed doors are working with a nefarious purpose. But yeah, I like the definition you gave that the truth is hidden. You can't investigate it or test it as a hypothesis because, well, we just know it's happening.
Right? Yeah. That's what every conspiracy theory suggests is that, because I'm like, why would you believe something that like literally there's no evidence for it, like we can't prove it? And they're like, well, and then the reason is like, well, the truth is being hidden. And I'm like,
truth is out there. That's why the X-Files was so popular. The truth is out there. I know it. Well, then
science is corrupt now. Science.
Yeah.
Science, the real science is something I've seen, like the real science.
Science.
What do you think makes someone susceptible to believing these conspiracies that are just so outlandish? Even do you think there's specific traits that an individual has, or maybe I don't know. For me, I think maybe there's a little bit of fear there, but I'm not sure what else we would say would make someone more likely to fall into these traps.
the trait question would be really good for a psychologist.
I know. We'll do another one.
No, I'm just thinking, I'm not saying, how dare you ask me a psych question. I'm thinking I would love to know more about if there's specific personality traits. You know, I like the idea that anyone can believe or come to believe in various levels of intensity of conspiracy theories if it suits their needs at a moment in time in their life where they are fearful, they need comfort, and it provides kind of an easy explanation for why things are the way they are, or why things are no longer the way they were. That's probably a better way of phrasing it, you know, social change. Conspiracy theories serve I have 4 functions that I jotted down. They help simplify arguments and debate. And because we move in this, you know, we talk about our fast food culture, fast pace. That means we have fast media, fast arguments, sound bites, short clips, and tweets. And so those are easier to consume and easier to digest. So conspiracy theories make sense of the world by making it black and white, good versus evil, sheep versus awake. So I think it's really attractive in today's society because people don't have time to sort through all of it. I mean, think about, we were talking about the Save the Children group. We are for saving the children. What side are you on? Like, well, I want to save the children. There were like 10,000 people in the South Carolina, or actually it wasn't South Carolina, I think it was Save Our Children Myrtle Beach. 10,000 people in this group because it was simplified. You want to save the children? That's what we're here to do. So people get dragged in. It makes it nice and neat to see what side you're on. The next one is self-enhancement and othering, which I just mentioned, I guess. It makes it easier to define the us versus them. You know, we stand on this side, you're on the other. Scapegoating, as I mentioned, the losing football team, the refs are working with the other team. You have to have someone to blame. So if you've suffered any sort of loss, or your team or your group has suffered a loss. And I think the big one that stood out to me and still stands out is comfort. Having a pattern makes us feel more comfortable than randomness, knowing that something didn't just happen by chance, that there's some sort of pattern in the noise, ironically gives us some sort of sense of comfort and stability. And we'll probably come back to that later as well. So yeah, I think that those are the elements that's how conspiracy theories can be used, and why people might be drawn to them in that moment, because it helps them kind of make sense of reality.
That makes sense. Julinna, do you have anything to add, or anything you want clarification on?
I mean, I think that the simple explanation, so it's interesting to me because conspiracy theories actually seem far more convoluted, right? This, like, Occam's razor.
I've got a great example later. Y'all are gonna love it.
Okay, but Occam's razor says, this was a philosopher from the 14th century.
I know.
Well, Matt knows. I'm gonna just say for everybody else that but that, you know, the simplest, the easiest, the best explanation is the simplest one. Like that's probably the one we should go for. Like, if somebody's hungry, it's because they haven't eaten, right? It's not because somebody's starving them and holding their hands behind their back and, you know, torturing them in an underground, dungeon. Yeah. So it's interesting to me that it does simplify the debate, but by creating otherness, but also they're fantastical. So I don't know if that's a criterion of conspiracy theories.
Yeah, there's probably, people who study this for a living. There's probably a continuum of the ones that are relatively straightforward, and then the ones that the more questions you ask to get them to explain it, the more you're just thinking that you're on Punk'd or some sort of show where someone's messing with you. And that's happened to me, where I honestly thought it was some of my colleagues who were coaching someone to mess with me. I mean, to the point where I said, I don't believe this. You're making this up. Bravo. Let's see the person behind the curtain. Mm-hmm. And then it wasn't. I thought it was like a Colbert style thing. Like, wow, you're really committed to playing this role. Mm-hmm. Amazing. You're so in character. But yeah, really.
Ashton Kutcher did not come out for you.
No, and then you're kind of like, I really wish Ashton Kutcher would come out.
Oh my goodness. Is there any way to talk to these people?
Yeah, well, yes and
Ones
no.
that were either friends or family members, not strangers. I'm not asking about like arguing with strangers or trying to change their mind. Although there's maybe a place for that for some people. But if you have a family member who is currently, consumed with one of the many, what would you do?
Yeah, this is hard because I have friends who have lost touch with their parents over conspiracy theories. And again, this sounds like it's coming down hard on one side of our political spectrum. That's just for right now. We could look back at, and hopefully we'll come back to that so that progressives and liberals and Democrats get some of their comeuppance on this. But for the moment right now, there's a lot with the pandemic. There's a lot with QAnon. There's a lot with the stolen election, and they've gotten to where they don't even talk to their parents. And for some of them, their parents are in their 70s or 80s, and these are the last years they're going to have. And it's trying to convince them that Bill Gates isn't trying to put a microchip in them to track what they're doing or make them buy Microsoft products or something. And then what an awful way to spend time with your family. So yeah, and I like that you immediately said, arguing with strangers, there's not much benefit to that. I'm certainly guilty of that. And several years ago, I gave a talk to GSAT about how to talk to the other side. And so immediately I thought this still applies. And at that time I said there were two groups, and there's still the two groups. The one group that you probably shouldn't waste time with, and these are the people who are fully committed to the narrative, to the conspiracy theory, or to the big lie. Within this group, there's people who are, they stand to personally gain from being purveyors of misinformation. I think one of the authors calls them conspiracy entrepreneurs. So these are the people like Alex Jones. They're making money off of, right? And so, and it's not, there's we'll talk about this later, but the documentary on HBO is called Into the Storm that covers QAnon. And they interview all of these YouTube QAnon conspiracy theorists who are making money on their YouTube channel talking about this. So if you argue with them, they're never going to give in because their financial livelihood, their status, their identity is reliant on preserving the lie. And the other part of that first group are trolls. They don't care. They just want to cause harm. They want to troll the conservatives, or they want to troll the liberals. They don't care about an actual conversation. They just want to see people get heated. They want to press their buttons and try to trigger them and get an emotional reaction. So that group, pass. Don't waste your time, right? Don't be the trolls. But the other group is the consumers or the retweeters. They see something, it resonates with them, and it makes them feel good or powerful or justified, and they share it. And I think it's really important for us to consider that group and look at it kind of sympathetically. How did they come to believe these things? And that's this much larger second group are the ones that I believe can be reached. And if you can peel them away from a larger movement, then that movement loses its momentum and dies. The people who are the purveyors of the information, the conspiracist entrepreneurs, they are never going to give in. Alex Jones is quietly admits, apologizes, but his livelihood is based on, slinging out lies and misinformation. Right. So I think that we talked last time about Dunning-Kruger. Did we have that conversation last time?
Yeah, but go ahead and define it for us.
Yeah, so Dunning-Kruger, two psychologists, and it's that those who don't have, those who are less informed are more competent than those who have expertise. And so, to put it as, I guess, succinctly as possible, you don't know what you don't know, and you also don't know that you don't know it. And that is often, most of the time, not their fault. And so if you're talking, for me, if I'm talking about criminology and crime stats with someone and they're coming at me condescendingly and arrogantly, I can't take that personally. And I can't say you're an idiot, because they don't know that they don't know. They don't know that what they've read about was on some blog and is not accurate based on the data. So I think Dunning-Kruger gives us kind of a window into understanding that, people are the products of their social environments, and they might not be doing this based on malice or, ill intent. It's just what they've come to learn. Knowledge and education are a privilege. We can't lose sight of that. And I think that as soon as we start saying, you're stupid, or you're an idiot, or you're evil, now we can't have a conversation. And this group also, we can't forget, especially now, has been slowly conditioned to kind of shut off any scientific evidence, any media outlet, other sources that might provide a counter. So they're only getting their information from tiny little corners. And if that's the place I was getting all of my information, and I did not see all of the other stuff, then I would be the same, right? Yeah, go ahead, Julinna, looked like you were chiming in.
I was just thinking about, I know that you were talking about like the two groups that we can talk to. One of the things that I'm a little confused on is, what's the relationship of QAnon to the pandemic hoaxers and the election stealers? Is this all the same group?
And the drinking the blood of children. Matt is our new resident QAnon expert.
I pass. I want to find someone else. And the funny thing is, I don't have that answer, because I feel like it all kind of imploded. There's been several steps where it's imploded and kind of reorganized. But I know that it aligned somewhat. I mean, especially with the Capitol riots, there were Q flags, right? And I know that some of the Q folks were using the pandemic to say that it was, well, we can go there now, that the mask mandates were deliberately designed to make it easier for children to be trafficked, right? So the masks, you're against masks because that allows children to be trafficked. Absolutely no evidence to support that. So I'm not sure how it all got rolled in together, Julinna, but that's not, QAnon in the beginning was much different. I think it had to kind of morph and change as some of its predictions failed.
Well, one of the things, so Julinna is, for everyone who doesn't know, she's like the most offline, online person there is. So Julinna, there was like a theory, I guess, within QAnon that JFK's eldest son actually wasn't killed in a plane crash, or
Yes.
I can't remember how he was killed, but he's alive. He is either Q or he's like close with Q, and that he and Donald Trump were coming together to expose the elite child sex trafficking, global sex trafficking ring. Yeah. So that was like one of the things, but there's like a ton that all go together.
So here's what they actually believe. I pulled up my notes, which I want to delete and never look at again.
Maybe one day you can.
They believe there's a global cabal of pedophiles and Satanists, primarily Democrats and the Hollywood elite. They believe that all presidents except for Trump were participants in child sex trafficking.
Even Reagan?
Well, even Reagan.
Even George Washington?
I assume.
I don't know if it goes back that far.
Maybe they don't go back that far. Who do you ask to figure out?
I'm clueless.
Yeah, that liberal globalists and Jewish bankers are trying to establish some sort of new world order. That's a recycled conspiracy theory. Inside the deep state, there were anonymous sources working against the Trump administration. And so Q was supposed to be some insider who had a level of clearance where he or she, it's he's been outed, can drop breadcrumbs. And it's kind of like a little video game where, I have to go find and see if this is real or not. And what I thought was really interesting is that he would sign it. What was it? Could be something, could be nothing. So leaves it kind of, well, maybe it's something, maybe it's not, which of course leads people to go, I'm gonna do some research and figure out maybe this is what he's talking about. So example, when Donald Trump was, I forgot who he was posing with, a bunch of military generals, and he said, this is the calm before the storm. So everyone started interpreting that as the storm is coming and Trump is gonna lock up all the pedophiles, and there's gonna be tens of thousands of people arrested, which of course never happened, right? And then of course there's Pizzagate, that Hillary Clinton was directing a pedophile ring in the basement of a pizza parlor. And Alex Jones, of course, was pushing that. And that
which resulted in a shooting spree.
Yeah. So he showed up with, I don't know if he fired any.
I don't think he fired the weapon. I think that they called the police. Yeah,
believing that there was a hidden door to a basement. There's no basement. Just committed to the belief. And that's the other thing, is that there's people, and we could say, oh, that person was mentally unstable, probably, but when they have access to that information, what are they going to do? They're going to take action. The one that I didn't know about until a couple months ago, that the Mueller investigation was supposed to be a distraction to allow Trump and his allies to uncover this pedophile ring. And that's when they would announce that they had completed their own investigation within the government. Clinton was going to be locked up, and this was part of draining the swamp, was that they were going to do a full sweep through our country and get rid of all the pedophiles and sex traffickers. So that's what I have on it. I do recommend the documentary on HBO Max called Into the Storm, and it's really good, and it's even more, as Julinna pointed out, complicated and kind of self-contradicting than I'd expected. I mean, I knew quite a bit about it, but I watched that, and you pretty much know who Q is or was after watching it, which was a nice little surprise.
Is it hard to watch?
No, I mean, it's hard to watch kind of weeping for humanity, but it's not, there's no content that you feel like you have to turn away from it, I don't think. And obviously anyone watching this, if I'm wrong, let us know.
Okay.
And the thing that I started thinking about way back when I started paying attention to this is the people who are totally committed to something like QAnon are a very small fraction. What's more concerning to me as a human being and as a sociologist are the people who are like, I'm trying to think of a good term for them, like Q adjacent. And they're like, well, I don't believe that the Hollywood elite and Obama and Biden and Reagan and Bush are drinking the blood of children, but they were all pedophiles. See what I mean? Like, I don't believe that, but they're right on the cusp of it. No, I don't believe this QAnon BS. That's nonsense. But I do think that masks were a problem and they were allowing children to be kidnapped. I don't follow QAnon, but clearly the election was rigged by the deep state. So it drags our conversation over into this area that starts to lose touch with reality. We become untethered. It allows people to say, I'm not crazy like them.
So one of the things, this is maybe a little bit off topic. I mean, I have so many questions. I like this idea of the Q adjacent. So, okay, so I've got like 4 questions, but I'm going to start with the one that's, I guess, the most relevant. So does Q, you said that Q's been outed. Does Q exist anymore? And if Q doesn't exist, how do new conspiracy theories become born? So Marjorie Taylor Greene, like, is she just like the new mouthpiece for conspiracy? Is she associated with Q?
So I think she was just a relayer or a champion of what was being read. And the thing that I found intriguing was, so in the documentary, they reveal essentially that it might have been 2 people, 1 person, and then the style of posts changed around a certain date. And they think that this other person took control. But I was trying to figure out, I don't understand anything about cybersecurity or hacking, how someone couldn't just start pretending to be Q and take it over. So as far as I know, this person is not posting the Q drops, I think is what they called them. But of course, the movement is still alive. And any group or social movement that has a cause, you yank the cause away, they don't disappear, like they just shift. And so I assume that it's now kind of a conspiracy theory group without a leader, which might be why we're seeing kind of all these different things pulled into it.
Okay.
You know, they were supposed to, what was the date? March 4th, Trump was supposed to be sworn in again as president. And then they shifted it to the 20th. And I don't know where, was someone saying this is what's happening, or did, you know, in these chat forums like 4chan, 8chan, whatever they're using, did someone suggest that and everyone kind of rallied around that? So is it like a, you know, crowdsourcing type thing, hive mind? I don't know, but I would like to.
At one point, they were saying he was running a shadow government and that he still was controlling the military, and like Biden, like may or may not actually be alive. At one point, they said like it might not be him, and he's not really president.
Yeah.
Kind of, yeah, Julinna, your face kind of.
Sorry. I don't have a good poker face. I'm like, if I think what you're saying is crazy, and that's what it's gonna look like. So basically, so the movement is amorphous now. There's no leader, and basically whatever like somebody says that gets the most attention and is the most perhaps fantastical, that'll be just kind of where it runs next. Because
that's my guess. Yeah, that's my guess, because I know that the person that this is from the documentary, that they thought was Q, you know, essentially signed off after the elections, like, or maybe it was after the riots, you know, all right, like essentially kind of like, it's time to move on. So I don't know what sort of central hub there is now, which is
okay. So Q resigned queuing after the January 6th riots.
I'm not sure. That's my
Okay.
hunch, my guess, because I don't think that
there haven't been any more breadcrumbs. What did you call them?
Right.
Crumbs?
Yeah, breadcrumbs. I think that's right. Yeah, dropping the breadcrumbs.
This might be a little too young for you all. Not that either of you are old, but
Oh,
I am like the weird area of millennial. Like I'm not an elder millennial, but I'm not like a young millennial. There was a show called Gossip Girl, and there was basically Gossip Girl was like this hidden person, and you were always trying to figure out who was Gossip Girl. And they were multiple people at different times. Someone would take over, but then there was always the person who was Gossip Girl all along. So for any of my like mid-level millennials, that's kind of what Matt was saying. Like, why can't someone jump in and grab it, you know, and run with it?
They explain it in Into the Storm because they're all very skilled at what they do, like location based. And again, this is an area I have zero expertise or knowledge, but the way they explained that, I went, okay, that makes sense. But I still, you know, my theory was that there were multiple people who would just kind of take turns, and for a while, I really thought it was a bunch of people who were just trolls who were like, let's see how many people we can get to believe something ridiculous. But then unfortunately, my theory was put to rest by that investigative journalism Into the Storm. So it was, I think they concluded it may have been two people, but the person who accidentally outs himself is just one person.
Julinna, I know you said you had like 3 other questions. We have one question waiting, so I'll save that for afterwards.
Okay, well, I guess, no, actually, I think I've asked both of them, but I guess my next question has to do with like how, I'm concerned about the Republican Party and their.
This is Amber's question.
Okay, good. Okay, about how everyone's still like they're going along with Trump and saying that the election was stolen. Sorry, that's my dog barking. I mean, so that's moved from a conspiracy theory to like a political platform. Maya.
Yeah, and if you notice, and this would be a nightmare if you were a, someone's campaign manager, or you were part of the thing. We manage this, because if we speak out, you're going to be kicked out of the party. Maybe several others, the 9 or 10 who voted, to impeach. Like, once you speak out, and this gets into one thing I meant to mention earlier, groupthink. If you, as a concept in sociology and some psychology, if you speak out, you are seen as disloyal to the group. So what was my pop culture example? Oh, so you're a sports fan and you're sitting around a happy hour and someone at the table is like, yeah, our team, I don't know, give me a team. Cowboy. I feel like people always talk about the Dallas Cowboys. Cowboys are going to be great this year. And you're sitting there going, the Cowboys are going to be terrible this year. But you don't say it because you don't want to upset the people at the table. And the thing is, most people at the table know that that's bullshit, but they don't want to be seen as not a team player. So this idea floats around in the group that the Cowboys are going to be the best team this year. And most people don't think it's true, but they know if they say that's not true for X, Y, and Z, we had injuries, so-and-so got traded, whatever. So they hold that opinion to themselves, and it allows this this group opinion and identity to rise up that's not even accurate. And so that is clearly what's happening right now, is there's a few people who speak out, but then they're seen as disloyal. So, and I don't know what the end game is there, really. I don't know how that's going to be resolved, because, and I know this for a fact, we have never seen anything like this in American politics. Obviously in my lifetime, which is short compared to our history, but the stuff I've been reading on it, it's just totally unprecedented new territory. So I don't know what I'm anxious to hear what you have to say about it.
So Amber's question kind of goes a little bit further, in that it's specifically about like our state and our county. So the county Republican Party has pretty much been taken over by Q folk, and she is just wondering how we prevent them from taking over the whole state.
I have no idea. So are they're like true conspiracy theorists or true QAnon?
There's like that. There's a woman local to here who was like the third ranked like Q supporter or something.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And there's, very few, at least vocal Republicans here that are not either like placating it or supporting it fully.
I mean, Tom Rice is clearly not a Q supporter, right?
Right.
Why he has like 9 primary challengers.
Because he spoke out against his team.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, so that to me is concerning. I guess I don't understand how we operate like on parallel universes,
Right.
like with 2 different sets of facts, different sets of, we can't, what a real problem for children was during the pandemic is people who were stuck at home, and children who were stuck in abusive households.
Right.
Like, so we can't even talk about that. We can't even solve that or address that problem, even though all the social workers and psychologists have reported on it, have facts, data, statistics. That's not on anybody's radar, because if everybody's paying attention to this other fake problem of,
distraction. Yeah.
I mean, right. I guess like it's very frustrating to me, because I feel like people don't realize that, I don't know whose idea this is to have conspiracy theories that totally throw a monkey wrench into your national politics so that you're totally dysfunctional. But whoever did that, or however the situation came to be, we're in a very dysfunctional place now. And we're not going to be able to solve any problems, right? If we can't even agree on basic facts, and then like how to, collect money and distribute it, right, to address our problems.
We're not even having a debate or discussion or arguing, which is what it'd be amazing to get back to. We're on opposite sides of an issue, but point, counterpoint, and gun control regulation, my rights to bear arms, and versus the pandemic was designed so that the New World Order, which is being run by Jewish bankers and somewhere in Russia, are coming to take all of our guns and give us a shot that will make us susceptible to mind control. Like, okay, good talk. I mean, that's where
things that you're watching on your phone and on your TV and on your computer have more to do with your mind control than.
Yeah, I'm really worried about being tracked with a microchip.
Yeah.
he said from
As
his.
they walk around with masks on.
Exactly. What's that website? Right. There's your mind. There's your tip right there.
Yeah, it's
Right.
tough. I made a list of how to talk to family or friends, and maybe this applies here to elected officials, because that expression that sunlight is the best disinfectant. I think a lot of people don't really know what some of these people believe. And I'll say again, this apply right now, the present moment, there are more elected officials on the American political right than the left who are pushing these things that are objectively false. We'll come back to liberals, Democrats later. There's examples historically, but just right now in this moment, it's different. So I think here's one of the examples that I was going to mention earlier. I was having a conversation with someone about the pandemic, and this falls under the heading of you have to ask questions instead of you're wrong and the whole backfire effect. As soon as you start trying to rebut them or disprove them, now you're in an argument. So instead, it's asking questions because it could possibly get them to clarify where they stand. But I think the other benefit here is that most of the time there's an audience watching with these conversations, especially online. And some of the, and I don't like to use this term, but like some of the crazy lurking beneath the surface doesn't make it out. If people knew that they were believing in these theories, then they might go, I'm going to pick this person as opposed to this person. So this was about COVID deaths being overcounted. And there's evidence that sometimes it was miscoded. They counted one thing as this when it should have been another. There's evidence that happened, not on a massive scale. So I would always say, what about total deaths from all causes in a certain area? And I found that people who wanted to have a conversation would say, well, that makes sense. So like total number of deaths. So an area, and you could see it like in a graph, the number of deaths that they expected to have this year based on the last 5 years trends were way up in the areas that were hit hard by COVID for total number of deaths. So if you take a cancer death and you classify it as COVID, that wouldn't increase the overall deaths. It would just shift it. So anyway, so this person said something like, well, hospitals and morgues get paid to overcount the deaths as COVID. And I said, well, that wouldn't affect the total deaths. They're up significantly in these areas. There's overflowing ERs and morgues and mobile morgues. So I said, how do you explain that? We have evidence of this. You can see it. And like, well, I heard that they're using, what did the person say? They're using mannequins in ERs and morgues in order to make it look like the pandemic is as bad as it is, and there's not that many people dying. And I said, so how, in all these areas, and I listed like 5 or 6 areas, there's mannequins in mobile morgues and in the ERs for the media? Yes. So the summary there is that doctors, nurses, morticians are all lying. They're coordinated in their lying, and they're using mannequins to make it look like people are sick and dying from COVID. So that was always there, but it was beneath the surface. But when me and a couple others were asking, that came out, it was just a conversation killer. And so anyone who was thinking, well, yeah, they're overcounting deaths, like that is not what I believe. So it kind of slices through this perceived, there's strong consensus or something. So, I mean, clearly that's absurd. And what a fearful way to live, that doctors and nurses and morticians are all lying. And then, the next part of that is, so what do you do when you have to go to the doctor? I'm going to take my kid down to the doctor and get him checked out by the people who are paid off by
by the people
it is.
Mannequins.
Yeah, like, well, I'm not going to get the vaccine because they're trying to stick a chip in me to make me more susceptible to mind control, but I have this really bad headache and I'm going to go see the doctor. It's not, you're not even like, it was it called internal consistency, Julinna?
Yes.
Over an argument. So anyway.
And how many of those people probably take some sort of prescription for some sort of ailment that they have?
Right.
That don't have a problem with your prescription pills for your high blood pressure, but you have a problem with a vaccine that you can see through the syringe and watch it go in.
Yeah, I saw the syringe video too. But anyway, the point is that, especially for elected officials, if they are asked questions and they have to give follow-up explanations, and then they reveal that this is what they think is happening, they're going to lose a lot of people who are supporting them, and rightfully so.
Right.
If there's 60% of their constituents are supporting them and only like 10 or 20% are QAnon believers, and they say something like that, it's going to be really hard to engage in the group think and go, I'm going to vote for that person, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, so I see that as a potential path. I just don't know how to do that, except for, questions and the press, local press, asking proper questions to figure out where you stand and how do you explain this and what does this mean? What does it mean? These claims you've made. What are the implications and what does it mean for our society? Like, let's zoom out for a second and think about the society we're living in, where all of the entire healthcare industry is in on a big scam to try to make us fearful when no one's really dying of COVID. I would leave the country. Bye, I'm out. That was happening.
Well, that kind of brings me to Lorraine's question here. She wants to know if this conspiracy craze that's happening right now, if it's just in the United States or if it's worldwide. So obviously the whole world would need to be in on this COVID scam if it was a scam, but are there Q supporters worldwide or is it mainly US centered?
I don't have the answer to that. I think it's, one thing within that question is the entire world is in on a pandemic just to hurt American politics. So even again, before you get into a debate or a conversation, don't and say, so the numbers over there are also fake, or like, how does that work? I mean, just it hurts your brain to think about. Right now there's, I think it's finally kind of under control, the curve in India. Mm-hmm. And so the whole thing the entire time was the pandemic is being exaggerated to hurt Donald Trump and get whoever, Bernie or Warren or Biden at the time elected. They're trying to hurt Trump. So are they still trying to hurt Trump by pumping up their numbers in India, or is it's morphed into something else? I assume, but I don't know if there being anything Q yet, because it was so much of an American thing that it was a person in the U.S. government who was letting the followers know that the hero Trump was going to take out all the pedophiles. So, right. But the societal conditions that gave rise to Q and fake news and misinformation, that's certainly not just an American thing. Other politicians in other countries have followed that playbook of misinformation and misdirection and all that. So if it's not already out there, we'll see it soon for sure.
We're getting some really good questions in the live stream now. So Sandy Bonner has a question, and she wants to know if is thinking Russia is involved in cultivating conspiracy theories to undermine our political stability. Is that a conspiracy theory, or is the possibility that it is true make it a hypothesis versus a conspiracy theory?
So I guess it depends on what you accept as evidence, right? I know that, I wish we had an intel person in here. Our intelligence community has said, and the Senate, and here's a good way to think about it. Our Senate Intelligence Committee, which was led, I think, by Republicans, concluded that there was a massive Russian disinformation campaign in 2016 and again in 2020. Mm-hmm. Pause for a second. Here's a conspiracy theory. The Russians hacked our system, our voting systems, and they changed votes to Trump from Clinton. So here we go, liberals. That is not true, right? So anyone who thought that the votes were changed from Clinton to Trump, that the Russians, hacked and did, not true. But believing that would explain away the pain of your candidate losing. Like, Clinton couldn't have lost. I bet the refs inflated the ball and it's Tom Brady again, right? But they did, and they released some of the memes and the posts. And the funny thing was, there were like 1,700 of them, and I went through like a third of them. So I went through like 500, and I saw 3 or 4 that I had seen on my mini feed. People had posted that the origin was Russian troll farms. So as Michael Shermer says, some conspiracies are true, that this is happening. People in secret working to try to harm us. So yeah, if there's evidence, then the conspiracy is true.
And Debbie Perkins has a follow-up for that.
Hey,
She wants to know, how do we recognize the difference between conspiracy beliefs and critical questioning about the abuse or misuse of power? Not letting you off easy.
can you say that again?
So how do we recognize the difference between conspiracy beliefs and critical questioning about the abuse and misuse of power?
It's a great question. Thanks for that, Debbie.
Great question.
I think so. Concerned skepticism and asking questions and asking for transparency, that's part of being responsible citizens, and demanding that our elected officials not hide all the information. I mean, obviously some of it would end up being national security sensitive, but I think that asking for the evidence, seeking out the evidence, and having those conversations is productive when it shifts into paranoia. But then again, I wish I could remember some of the examples they gave of conspiracies that people dismissed that ended up being true. And for every one of those, there's 100 that are just bonkers. So it starts as us being concerned or skeptical or maybe a bit afraid. But then when we start rejecting the evidence that says it's not true, and we hold on to that belief that, one of the ones I was going to give for liberals was that Bernie Sanders the DNC stole the primary from him by switching votes or rigging the election. And then you see that Biden won the black vote. I think it was like 60% in some states. And so you see that and you go, well, I don't believe that. But that's what the exit polls showed, and that's what the data show, and that's what surveys show. And if you refuse to believe that, then you've shifted from I'm concerned as to how this happened into I don't accept the results.
Right.
So I think that's where the shift is as the evidence comes in, if you don't change your mind or go, that makes sense, or yes, and I want more, then it shifts into that kind of more paranoid conspiratorial thinking.
Right.
I would add to that. I think your answer was exactly right, Matt. I would probably add to that the kinds of things that we should be looking for are, like, if there's abuse of power, there's lots of paper trails, there's bank accounts, there's people that work with people, right? That you can get evidence for those views or for abuses of power or things like that, or wrongdoing, if we look for it in the right place, but not if we're like trying to read the tea leaves at the bottom of the teacup. Like, that's just not the way we form beliefs, like, at least responsibly, right? We responsibly form beliefs by, whatever, doing Freedom of Information Acts, or, getting people to come and testify in court, right? And I think that, like, that's why I still hold out hope for the United States, because we have a judicial system that requires evidence. And if you don't have admissible evidence, they have entire courses in this, right? In law school, that you have to take a whole course in evidence, what constitutes evidence. And Trump didn't have anything. There was nothing admissible by the courts. That should tell you something, right? The fact that this went away, it's not because the judges were on Trump's side, or because they didn't like him, or because they didn't want him to win. It was because by the rules that we were playing by, the stuff that he had didn't count. And so, I mean, I know that doesn't help, like, our everyday American person who just believes that people make knee-jerk responses, or they form beliefs just haphazardly. But, like, at least in, I don't know, judges and lawyers, they're not just haphazardly forming beliefs. I don't know.
And that was amazing to watch. I mean, amazing is not the right word. As a scholar, it was amazing to watch play out. As a citizen, it was terrifying to watch the courts. And one, if we get to it, great. If not, that's fine. One of the things I had in my solutions section, besides the having conversations, which we can return to later, there's all this discussion about deplatforming and censoring people. And if there's one person who's responsible for all of this misinformation, and I saw recently it was something like 12 anti-vax accounts were responsible for 2/3 of the anti-vaccine information. And so they took them off of Twitter and Facebook and Instagram, and because it becomes a public health threat, right? And the same thing, and this was amazing, in the weeks after Trump was banned on social media, which is clearly a huge, huge step. What was it? Election misinformation plunged 73%. And here's the thing: people go, "Well, you're censoring that. Who says it's misinformation?" And as Julinna pointed out, and I have it right here, it was 86 lawsuits after the election. And I was excited about it. Please take it to the courts, because the arguments I was having with people was that the courts will sort it out. And here's the thing: even if you hated Trump, you'd want to make sure that there wasn't some weird thing that happened, because then what does that mean for our society? So 86 lawsuits, none of which moved forward because there's lack of standing or lack of evidence. There was never any evidence to back them up or support them. So that is 100% misinformation. You have evidence? We have evidence. Let's see the evidence. We'll show you the evidence later. And then, of course, several news organizations got in trouble, big trouble, because they kept bringing these people in who were talking about, well, you'll have the evidence. And so now there's these massive lawsuits against these news organizations for, defaming, smart tech and Dominion voting systems, because they didn't have any evidence. All they would have had to say was, here is a video of one of your employees who's putting a ballot in their pocket. Boom, evidence, no, lawsuit dismissed. But they didn't even have that. So we had the opportunity to test it, and there was no evidence. So.
Right. That actually, part of what you said brings me to, I feel like, one of the best questions that we had planned for you. So it's, should we consider QAnon and other conspiracies like it a public health crisis due to the potential danger? Or would a national security threat be more appropriate? For instance, the insurrection on January 6th at the Capitol and the propaganda surrounding COVID from the Q crowd that could have drastic health consequences.
Clearly it's always been this way with anti-vax propaganda, and now with the COVID vaccine, it is a health threat. And here's the thing, and I was thinking about this a couple of days ago, that it's a different argument to say, I don't think that the government should tell people they have to get vaccinated or require them. We can move that to the side. What we could say is that people should have access to accurate medical information before they make a decision for themselves. Maybe that's a place we can have a conversation. And that is not happening because we're being bombarded with information that seems real or true, and they're making their decision based on something that's deliberately misleading. So for the public health, clearly there's a negative impact. With something like QAnon being a national security threat, we certainly saw that with the Capitol riots. And it was really, tedious trying to talk about this in class, knowing that students come from different backgrounds, and setting this aside is not normal political discussion. And I was trying to get them to think about the term in sociology, social currents and collective effervescence, where there's an energy and emotion that runs through a group and people get carried away. And they kind of, so think about, you're at a concert and you feel that emotional energy like electricity in the crowd, and you say, oh, it was amazing. Or you go to a political rally, whichever side you're on, and you feel like, oh, I just feel alive and energized. This feels amazing. And so I had my students think about or pose the question that, some people were clearly at the Capitol riots, planted pipe bombs. There were some who took zip ties. There were some who had threatened violence online. Some groups who had weapons outside of DC who clearly showed up with the intent to do harm. And it was a very, very small percentage of people. The much larger group were there and got carried away with the energy that was in the group, the flags waving that said, oh, that's the group that there's the Q flag and there's the whatever flag, and we're storming the Capitol together. These are my people. We've been wronged. And those are the ones who've been arrested and are going, what happened? I didn't do anything wrong. Like, I'm not a bad person. And no, you're not, but you are probably going to prison. So those people, they're criminals, but they're also victims because they got carried away by this. So for us just to say all these people are going to go to jail and we shouldn't give them any leniency, you can say that, but who's at fault? Well, it's the movement that was unchecked and all of this fake information that, essentially brainwashed some of them. They thought they were being patriots. Like, you were fed a flat out lie, and now you're going to prison. And I feel so bad for some of them. The guy, the handsome guy holding the lectern, like a father of 5 or something. And so he's not going back to his home in Florida or wherever he's from, got carried away. And you can say, oh, he's an idiot. I wouldn't do that. You were there and you had that energy flowing through, and these are my people and we've been wronged and we're going to take our country back. So I think it's absolutely a national security threat. I don't know what to do about it. Don't quote me on that, but that's a whole nother conversation.
Yeah. We have a few more questions, and then if there's anything that we didn't hit on that you want to bring up or Julinna wants to ask, we can go ahead and do that. But yeah, no one's letting you off the hook here. Judy wants to know why are local schools and colleges teaching classes like part of an English or a history class, perhaps? Why are they not teaching on how to identify conspiracy or fake news like Italy or Finland?
Yeah, I don't know why they're not. I would, and this is the thing, and we try to make it nonpartisan when you talk about any of this, and that's why it's so hard to talk about this right now, because it looks like you're just coming down on one side. And so I'll say again, critical thinking and asking for evidence, hypothesis testing, looking at claims, Occam's razor, as Julinna pointed out, these are all really important. I saw it was one of those great memes that you just want to click share. It said, for every child whenever a child reads a book, a conspiracy theory dies. Because and so I don't know why we don't have that sort of program. My answer would be because politicians on both sides benefit from us being fed misinformation. So they don't have an incentive for us to be true critical thinkers, because we are easier to manipulate when we don't have the ability to go, wait a minute, let's see the evidence, let's see the data.
Right.
Yeah.
So she follows it up with, could making so many aspects of education responsible to a standardized test, often used nationwide, it leads administrators and teachers to teach to a test or lesson eliminate essay questions where students can show analysis, synthesis, consequences of information or action versus command, response questioning, so teachers can check off a box or student goal box for their administrator's evaluation sheet.
Yeah.
So I think she wants to know if that's part of the problem.
Well, she answered her own question, so well done. Yeah, I mean, I think that what we define as knowledge is that critical thinking isn't valued, and it's right. Easy to do the quick standardize, fill in the bubble, grade it, check mark, move them on to the next grade without doing the hard stuff, which is teaching them the critical thinking skills and how to evaluate us. We spend so much time in our department. How do you evaluate sources? And I always say to my students, regardless of where you are on the political spectrum, you want to make sure your argument is standing on something strong. So if you want to argue against gun control, you should have the data to show that these types of gun control measures are ineffective and that those data exist. If you want to argue that some measures work, you have to have that data, have stuff to support your argument, as opposed to so-and-so said so. So we have to kind of try to make up for that in college, because I feel like it's lacking in K through 12.
Right.
Yeah, and I think media literacy is a part of that. Just like learning about what sources are reliable and what aren't, and what makes a reliable source. What does it mean to access something reliably? And for some, like any Yahoo, can make a website. How do we know that website has any veracity to it?
Right.
I know they teach those kinds of things in like library, or I don't know, but I don't know. I mean, I don't know if the comm department does it, but it's definitely a major problem. Right. So.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on where we go from here?
I mean, I feel like we should we should do a happy hour. We talk about this, or maybe a panel discussion or something.
Yeah, we could bring a psychology professor with you next time.
Yeah, no, I really do think that conversations, the hard conversations with family and friends and online, is important. It is difficult. I have wasted an ungodly number of hours having conversations with people, but I think that that's the problem is if we don't have those conversations, then these other voices, these other theories go unchallenged and they rise to the top. And this applies to arguing with the other side and also arguing with our own people and holding them accountable for things that they say that are not true or problematic. And so having those conversations is where we start. And maybe next time we'll talk about some of those ideas, like asking questions and asking for sources and data. One thing that I try to do is if someone's pulling from a source, and I'll say, if it's someone on the left, can you identify sources to the left of your source that you would call biased? And you should be able to name some, if you're on the right, you should be able to say, yeah, I don't go to Drudge or InfoWars. They're right wingers. The problem is that some people can't do that. And so you can get them to realize that there's nothing to the right of their sources, more conservative, if they're conservative, or if they're liberal, they can't name anything that's left-winging liberal bias. Then maybe they'll go, wait a minute, where am I on this spectrum? You've seen the media bias chart, and there's polar extremes. And so I think there is some value to getting people to realize you're getting all of your news, if I can line up on the screen, from over here. And someone on the left is getting all of their news from over here. Like, we could be here and still disagree, just not on the polar. So you should be here and you can say, well, I don't trust, MSNBC because they're biased, but I'll trust Reuters and, the AP. So I think that's useful, getting in those conversations, getting people to recognize that they're being manipulated. So that's one place we can go.
I have one question about engaging with people. So you said you'd spent ungodly amounts of hours talking to people. Was it in person or online? I know that there's a famous story about, I think her name is Megan Phelps, and she left the Westboro, she left the Westboro Baptist Church because of Twitter, that she had been on Twitter and like people started challenging her on her beliefs. And it took a lot of like back and forth conversation. I mean, maybe that's unusual, but it's also like kind of a testament to the fact that like engagement can work. So do you think online engagement does work, or is it more in-person conversation?
I think, unfortunately, that in person is better. Obviously, in the past year, we've all been online. And the thing that happens online is that people can infiltrate it who want to kill the conversation. So the trolls show up and they're like, I do not like this. I can see the direction it's going. And so they spam or shit post and kills the conversation. Personally, one thing that I've had happen is some of the people that I would not interact with regularly in my day-to-day life, we have had discussions online and eventually shifted to private message.
Yeah.
And those were actually somewhat productive, because then they're not, you're not in that, like, especially from men, masculinity strut of, I'm not going to be wrong. Like, well, hey, I just had a question about that video you posted. The tone changes. So public forum where there's an audience, now it's the Super Bowl. People have their flags, they're waving. So I don't see, don't read the comments on a news post and don't comment, because that's all spectacle. I do think in person is the way to go. And sometimes it's just not worth your time, but I guess we have to make those decisions based on our own headspace.
Yeah. I don't even want to know how much bourbon you've been drinking to have these conversations.
Yeah, there were a few glasses of bourbon with some of them. The Save Our Children group, that I think Ashton was briefly in. I know we're almost out of time, but I wanted to get this in. Was really eye-opening, because there were people in there who were drawn to it as it was designed because they wanted to help children. And what had happened was Q groups were being deplatformed or being kicked off of social media. So QAnon hijacked the hashtag Save Our Children or Save the Children, and they got more people to come into these groups. And every now and then you'd see a post, someone would say, well, The LGBTQ community has paved the way to normalize pedophilia. And I think that's when Ashlyn message is like, I'm going in because I can't sit and see that and not say something. And so I try to be really nice and say, look, that's actually, pretty dangerous to say, and that's consenting adults. And what was amazing was there were about 10 people who commented and said, I'm gay, and that's ridiculous. So you have people who are in QAnon, like, that's bullshit, as someone who identifies as LGBTQ, right? So, but it was every now and then those little things would post, and it was abhorrent, right? 99% of people in that group did not believe it, but it would pop up. So I don't know. It's some of them are totally committed, and their intolerance is what defines them, and others are just kind of adjacent to it. And I think it's like the slight nudging of those who are adjacent to get them to see what they're standing next to or who they're standing with, just to create some space. That's what we want to do, is isolate some of these where they should be, the fringe, not mainstream.
Yeah.
And again, that goes for both sides, right?
Yeah.
GMOs are safe. Nuclear power is safe. Relax.
There are people on the left I know who are anti-vaxxers. So.
Yeah. Oh yeah, the original before this pandemic, anti-vax was, I think, mostly the West Coast, Oregon, right, Washington types who know better than the real science. Yeah. Chemicals, right?
Mm-hmm.
Chemical, it's bad for you.
Right.
Yeah. I had to explain to my mom, like, I don't even know how many times. And I learned this from my husband because he has a science degree, so he can like read research and understand it. She was trying to say the Diet Coke was like poison, and that whatever it is, aspartame, like causes cancer. And I'm like, in rats, where the amount is like thousands times their body weight, that we can never consume in our lifetime. So I'm going to drink my Diet Coke, and I will be.
Diet Cokes in a day might give you cancer.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's interesting, but yeah. I mean, also, if you need something to do, have a baby and then tell your relatives they can't come near your baby unless they get their vaccine. So got my parents vaccinated that way.
Oh, that's amazing.
Well, my mom and my stepdad. My dad is firmly on team science, so.
That's good. Well, consider yourself lucky. I'm lucky as well, I know we're out of time. One thing I do want to say about talking to the other side and talking to people you disagree with, and this is a big sociological position. It's the idea of locus of control. People who feel like they're out of control are more likely to believe in conspiracy theories. And I think that we need to keep that in mind, to have a little bit of empathy, that if someone is drawn to that, that means that there's some sort of anxiety or discomfort that has occurred. Even if you disagree with this notion that whites are losing status in our society and they're losing the race war, you can understand that there's a disruption in their normal routine, and that has knocked them off balance, and they are looking for an explanation or a community to help them get through it. So the notes were, after natural disasters, people believe in conspiracy theories. It gives us comfort. It gives us some sort of explanation, and allows us to be less fearful. So I think we have to keep that in the back of our mind, is that they're not necessarily here to destroy society and they're angry. Some of them are, that's group one. Others are just looking for some sort of comfort and some sort of explanation that allows them to make sense of what's happening when they don't understand it. So especially when talking with relatives,
Yeah,
I definitely think that's true. I think a lot of it is about their the fear factor. But yeah, I think that that is definitely part of it for sure. Julinna, do you have anything you'd like to add?
No, I was just going to wrap up. I wanted to wrap up just by acknowledging and thanking Matt. I really appreciated the way that you talked about people who believe in conspiracies. I think it's easy to write people off as stupid or irrational or dumb or whatever.
Right.
And I think what I appreciated about Matt's presentation is that it's not that's not it. And how we think about other people matters. And so we can't reduce people to their to the lowest common denominator, because then we'll not be able to engage with them effectively. So remembering that, people are often have high anxiety, and that's why they're looking for certain kinds of explanations, and they have good, intuitions, or they have good intentions. but they're just not being exposed to the right kinds of beliefs or being challenged or something like that. So
Right.
Matt, thank you very much
Thanks for
for
having me. It was fun. Flew
yeah,
by.
absolutely. This was great. I feel like I learned a lot, and
Me too. It was a good discussion.
yeah, for sure. It was a great discussion, and we'll see how this plays out over the summer.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, yeah, thank you for doing all the research on all this. It's been great to learn all about it.
Thanks. I
Thank you
appreciate it.
so much.
I'll see y'all next time.
Okay, sounds
Good night, everybody.
good night, everybody. That's my kids are saying goodbye.
Bye, Teresa.
All right, y'all have a great night.
All right,
Bye.
see you.